Get ready for unfiltered banter, laughs, and a barrel of fun. This is Monkeys Unfiltered.
Welcome to this episode of Monkeys Unfiltered. Go ahead and buckle up because it's time for us to sort the saints from the sinners. We all know that one person. Yeah, you know the one. Always busting your chops or pulling some underhanded stunt that's going to cause problems. That person that just generally seems to enjoy being a pain in the you-know-what. They cut in line like they own the place, make snide, rude, judgmental remarks, and are never late to deliver the classic "I told you so" with a smug grin that you just want to wipe right off their face. And let's not forget those nosy neighbors who peer through their curtains ready to report every move you make, and the know-it-alls who have a better way to do everything and love telling you all about it. The overbearing family members who smother you with unsolicited advice, and those self-appointed etiquette police who believe their divine mission is to instruct the world on proper behavior. We know those people too, so today we're going to have some fun and dive into the wild tales from the Am I an A-hole subreddit to determine if the authors of these submissions are indeed the a-holes they are concerned about being, or if they've been wrongly accused. We'll be reading stories that might just remind you of that one person you know, or maybe even yourself. Prepare for some juicy stories, hilarious commentaries, and our verdicts as we get to the bottom of who's really at fault and who's just misunderstood. Let's see who the real troublemakers are and who's just getting a bad rap. Hey guys.
What up?
Well,
How are y'all?
Ready to talk about some a-holes.
Ready to talk about some a-holes? I mean, your dog's been chewing a-holes, so... Clarification, she has new toys, and that's the first area she likes to destroy, kind of like my dogs.
I just finished getting my guest rooms ready because we're about to have a lot of company.
Oh, some of that company is me.
It is in fact.
I'm very excited.
Well, that is you.
I'm very excited. Very excited. Anyways, I'm kind of late to the party and just kind of discovered this whole thing on Reddit about, am I the a-hole? A couple of months ago, and I've been addicted to it. So I thought it would be fun to kind of pick out a few that speak to us and give our opinions on them. I mean, because Lord knows we have no shortage of opinions, right?
I mean, you don't for sure.
Well,
I definitely have opinions. I've really tried to curb how often I share them, though.
Right, because it gets you in trouble.
Well, and I've also had to learn that literally no one cares about
There's
their
that.
opinions.
There's that. There's that. I've said
That's
it.
why I don't have opinions.
Right. And I've said it more than once. Like, people are so self-absorbed. They don't read. They don't take a minute to try to figure things out for themselves. But
I had a lady at my job today ask me where something was, and it was 4 feet in front of her.
Well, it's just like I have people email me and want to know, how do I pay for this? Where's the price on that? And I'm like, it's literally right above. Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like right
just
there.
Take 2 seconds and evaluate your situation.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's our jobs make us like uber hypersensitive to it. Maybe the rest of the world is actually not a-holes. We just think they are.
No, everyone is.
Okay. You won't get an argument from me. Well, then let's go ahead and get into it. Who wants to go first? Don't everybody raise their hand at once.
I'll go first.
Okay, cool.
I'll go first.
Okay, cool.
I just don't know which one to start with.
Well, we're going to try to get through a couple, but we'll see, because as we read them, then we'll give our opinions and debate, and, we can be kind of chatty Cathys, but...
This one is, am I the a-hole for not having my wife buried next to her long-deceased husband as my stepson desired?
Wow.
All right, I'm already in. Let's go.
Right. I'm all in.
My wife died 3 months ago suddenly after 9 years of marriage. I was in charge of her funeral arrangements. We had one daughter together, an 8-year-old, a female 8-year-old, and 2 kids from her previous marriage, male 16 and female 14, that I adopted. I had discussed her burial spot with my stepchildren and told them I wanted her buried in my family plot where I intend to be buried one day. My stepson said she would have wanted to be buried next to his biological father and her previous husband who died 12 years ago. My stepdaughter said she didn't care either way. I didn't want to disagree with my stepson on something like this, so I looked into the cemetery where her previous husband was buried, but found out there's only one adjoining plot next to his grave and no plot adjoining the adjoining plot, meaning that I can't be buried there one day.
Like a three-way.
Right? I told this to my stepson that I can't bear to not one day be laid to rest beside her. I know she loved her previous husband deeply, but she loved me as well, and I've only ever loved her and only ever will. He didn't agree and said she had always hoped to be reunited with her previous husband. We were at complete loggerheads over this, but in the end, it was my call and I made it. He was so upset with me and still is. He earlier said he needed time to get past this and now says he needs me to apologize. My stepdaughter thinks we shouldn't be having this fight because it doesn't matter what happens to anyone's body once they die. I want to apologize to him, but I don't think I'll mean it. Even now, I think it would have pained my heart so much if I'd listened to him.
Wow. There's a lot in that one.
So basically, his wife of 9 years died, and the kids that he adopted, the older one from a previous marriage, would like for her to be buried with his dad.
I can understand that. I'm 100%, Mom, and I saw you nodding your head in agreement. I'm 100% for who cares?
Right.
Like, ultimately, like, I'm the soul inside this vessel, not the vessel itself. So for me, it doesn't bother me. I know it, like, means a lot to people to get to, like, I guess, honor you after you move on, but I could care less. And honestly, I'm sure the individual could care less because they're literally dead.
Right.
Right.
Right. Like, was he afraid she's
Maybe
going to come
that
back?
makes me the a-hole. I don't know.
Like, is he afraid she's going to come back and haunt him? I mean, there are a lot of things I think that have to be taken into consideration here. They're like, how long was she married to her first husband? When she married her second husband, did she continue to express that she wanted to be buried next to her first husband? Clearly, this is an older couple. I mean, if they have adult kids that
They're not
can weigh in
adult.
on.
They're
Oh, no.
16, 14, and then to get 16 and 14 from her previous marriage and 8 from their own marriage.
Oh, got
So,
you.
I mean,
Well,
like,
I mean,
this 16 and 14-year-old had their dad die 12 years ago, so when they were super young, and then their mom die while they're in high school, essentially.
yeah. I mean, I see where they could be totally emotional about it, and that's a really hard spot to be in because much like you pointed out, I mean, these kids now have lost both their parents before their 18th birthday. I mean, that has to be just trauma in its own. Yeah, I think the guy probably could have approached it much like Jason said, that in the end, it doesn't really matter. That's not your mom. And it's all just ceremonial, whatever, for the people who are left behind. And if that's the case, then I don't know. I probably would have buried her by her first husband.
I don't know. I don't feel like he's being an a-hole as much as the kid
No.
is, because if the kid is 16 and his father died 12 years ago, he was only 4.
Right.
So, I mean, like, I get that whole, like, bond with a parent, biological or whatever, but, like...
Aiden's like, he didn't even know his dad. What does it matter?
But, I mean, like,
Oh
really,
my
like,
goodness.
this
Aiden's
is...
the a-hole now.
No,
Wow.
Listen.
What a bold
So, for
take.
9 years, he's grown up with this guy as his father figure. So, I mean, like...
True.
It's kind of like, I don't know, backstabbing in a way. At least I would feel that way.
True, but I also look at it too as the mother of someone, who has children who, didn't lose a parent but got divorced. I think there is some sort of fantasy for, their parents being together. Even though they've never known it in real life, they just have this concept of their parents being together forever. I mean, I don't know. Maybe in the end, he should have just cremated her and put some with the ex-husband and save some for when he died.
So it's actually funny you bring that up because I was reading the comments. One of the top comments is, why didn't you consider cremation and splitting the remains so you and your stepson both have your wishes granted? And somebody pointed out that if they're practicing Catholics, the ashes must remain together.
Oh,
So,
well, I mean,
or maybe they're just against cremation.
I don't know. I don't think the guy is being an a-hole, and I don't really think the kid is being one either. I think, the kid just has a lot of, like most teenagers do, a lot of angst over a lot of things. But I mean, the trauma of losing both of your parents, I think, kind of, compounds things in that situation. But I don't think either one of them are being an a-hole.
No, it's a tricky situation to navigate, and like I don't know if there's a right answer per se, because I don't think anyone like gets married with the intent of being like single later on, right?
Right.
Right.
It seems like it might have been like a sudden death. So, like for example, my wife and I are like in our close to mid 30s, and we don't have any plans for like burial plots or anything like that. So, yeah, if you don't have that sorted, it's kind of tricky. But it's my opinion that when it comes time to like settle that, so for example, if someone dies suddenly and you have to, do the funeral arrangements and all that, if you have the means, of course, it makes sense to just go ahead and buy two plots or whatever, if that's the way you're going to go, instead of just buying the one and hoping that later on, like, I'll have access to,
Right.
be next to the person. And in which case that would have been settled a long time ago, right? It would have been like, we already planned for this. This is not like a now she's dead and we don't know what to do. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I not everybody has that means, so I don't want to be like insensitive to it.
Right. But I do like that he explored the option of having a three-way in the afterlife. That was great.
Whoa.
Wow. So a little bit more info. He was married to her for 9 years, and the biological dad who died 12 years ago, they were only married for 6. So
Yeah, well,
I know,
she must
like
have been relatively young.
it's different and all that. Like even like it's not very much difference in years, but like you can be with someone a short amount of time and love them.
Right. No,
You
I
know.
got that. That's really weird. Does he say what he wound up doing?
No, not in the comments, but
No, he didn't give an update.
I would say we're pretty much in agreement that he's not the a-hole here.
I would think so.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's the a-hole. And if
Yeah.
I think back about what you read, I think he probably did not honor the son's wishes because he said something about, wanting to apologize to the boy, but feeling like he wouldn't mean
Yeah.
it. And, kudos to him for not wanting to give a hollow apology just for the sake of doing it.
He does say in the end it was my call and I made it. He was upset with me and still is.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
Right. Well, everyone wants to do the right thing. It just so happens that they disagree on what the right thing is.
right.
Right.
So I guess that doesn't really make anybody a bad person.
Right. How about you, Jason? You got one?
Yeah. So am I the a-hole for not letting my kids see their grandmother?
Oh.
This person writes,
I'm feeling some Freudian, overtones here.
This person writes, my husband's mom and I do not have a good relationship. Actually, I shouldn't say that. We have a horrible relationship. My husband and I have been together 14 years, married for 10 in August, and the things she's done throughout the relationship include calling us bad parents, saying that we neglect our children. She also said that she was going to take us to court. She came to our house yelling and screaming at us with a 2-week-old in the house post C-section. There are so many other things. She's tried to tell me things my mom told her about using my husband, but told me all this after my mom had already passed away. I know my mom wouldn't say that because she doesn't even like his mom. There have been
That's
plenty
funny.
of times she's talked crazy to me, and I kept forgiving her until I've had about enough. The last time we talked was Christmas of 2016, and that was the last time because she showed up at our house tripping again.
I can relate.
She told my oldest, 12, in October, who was super excited about her Halloween costume, that she was too old to be going trick-or-treating and needs to stop.
At 12?
She basically called my daughter a liar when she told my husband and I about the conversation. She told both of my kids they don't have to run back and tell us everything that she said to them. My middle child, who is 7, said maybe a year ago she doesn't like going to mom's house because she doesn't like it when she yells at daddy.
Oh my goodness.
My kids haven't seen her since September, per my decision. I have a 16-month-old who she's seen maybe twice, and my husband takes her there ever so often because she's not allowed in my house. My girls have recently asked to go to her house because she has stuff for them. It says, I just feel like I keep giving her chances to see my kids, and every time she does something to disrespect them or us. Although my kids do realize how she treats us, they want to go to her house because of the stuff she says she has. So she wants to know if she's the a-hole for not letting the grandmother see the kids anymore.
No.
I think not.
100% without a doubt. No,
Yeah,
she
no.
is not an a-hole. And everybody knew where I was landing on this
No,
one.
I've now, like, Ariel and I have developed relationships with several parent couples because we've really made an intent to make friends in our own age group, because somehow we always end up with, like, being friends with people that are way older than us. And so now that we have friends in our age groups, they all have little children, like 2 and 6 and stuff like that. And yeah, like some of the main advice that they pass out is like, you are your children's parent. You can dictate like who their influences are, even if that means cutting like your own family out of the picture.
Right.
Like if there's situations that you don't want them to be a part of,
Absolutely.
if there are things that any of your family get up to that you don't want them knowing about, I mean, whatever, like, it's your job to protect your kids.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement. I don't think she's an
Right.
a-hole at all.
Totally not the a-hole.
I feel like the what you call her mom or whatever
Yeah.
is just manipulative, and you don't want your kids to grow up learning how to be like that.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
like
Yeah.
the whole, I have stuff at my house for you. Like, don't you want to come over?
Right. It's very manipulative.
Yeah.
Right. Very. I mean, and I'm not throwing shade or anything like that, but I mean, I've had my own experience with this, raising you guys. I mean, there was a lot of times it was just me, right? And there are certain family members and things that I just didn't think it was beneficial for y'all to be around. And, occasionally it was my mom. Again, I say I'm not throwing shade. I always preface things by saying, my mom did the best job she knew how to do, right? But she also, even still today, with you guys being grown, she'll often say to me, you need to tell him he needs to blah, blah. And I tell her all the time, they're grown. They're adults. I don't need to tell them how to live their lives. They've been raised right. So yeah, the manipulation or the behaviors that aren't what you want your children exposed to, or habits that you want your kids thinking are okay, I'm totally in her corner if she says, puts her foot down and is like, there's no contact, or there's limited contact or supervised contact, whatever she has to do. I mean, Jason, you and I talked about this one time before. Everybody loves that saying, oh, well, blood is thicker than water, but we talked about what the actual true meaning of that is. And
Yeah, it's kind of reverse of what everyone typically would think.
yeah. And so even if it is the secular definition that blood is thicker than water, I more subscribe to I choose my family. Like, just because we were born blood
Absolutely
doesn't mean I have to tolerate you or have you in my life. So no, chick's totally not an a-hole.
Yeah, exactly. So blood being thicker than water is a reference to the blood of the covenant being thicker. So like your spiritual family is more important than the family you're born with, which is the water, right? So it's like,
right.
As I said in the beginning, if there are members of your own family who are not lining up with what you envision for your child, then you have the right to tell them no. It doesn't matter how close they are. Like, if it's not you or your wife, or rather you or your husband,
Totally, 100%.
then the two of you together get to dictate like what's important. Now, if you disagree on what's important, then I don't know how to help you, but you should usually be on the same page before you have children.
Right. You would hope so. I'm curious, like, if anybody in the comments felt like she was being the asshole.
So I do have a comment here. It just says, does the mother-in-law actually give gifts to the children? She says, or is she gaslighting them to come over and verbally abuse them and your husband and to badmouth them to their face?
Right. And to badmouth them to their face.
And then she also says, when you say tripping, do you mean on something, or she's being verbally abusive again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes the comments are way better than the write-ins. That's what when you said tripping, I was like, "Oh Lord." That's funny. No, I mean, is there anybody who disagrees with her?
No, well, I don't see every. Well, actually, here's one. So everyone's saying no, but there's one comment here. It says, "You are the a-hole. Your horrible relationship with her should not be used to punish the children. She wants to see the kids. More importantly, they want to see her. It would be different if she was harming them in some way, but you didn't mention anything close to that, and nobody should be telling minor children that they shouldn't talk to their parents about things. She shouldn't be saying things to kids if she doesn't want it repeated." So what's interesting is like he's acknowledging her verbal abuse here and then also calls her the a-hole. It's so
Right.
weird.
Wait, what?
Like you can't have it both ways. Oh, hot take here. I feel like the mom should be instilling better values in the children, not to simply seek out the grandmother because she has gifts to be given.
Well, they're kids. I mean,
Hey, there's plenty of responsible, like forward-thinking children.
yeah, I mean, she could have a talk with him about, mom is not just like a toy factory or whatever.
Yeah, we don't do like things just to get stuff.
Yeah, what were you
That's
gonna
not
say,
how this
Hayden?
works.
I was going to say, it took me till the age of like 17 to realize Christmas isn't about presents.
Really?
So kids love presents.
Yeah, they do. Everybody likes to get something, especially if it's something you don't have and you really want. And, grandparents are great about, I don't think that their intention is to be, interfere, but grandparents are great about stepping over the line a little bit and going against the, parents. Cause Jason, I can tell a story about you one time going to Disney World and you wouldn't do something. I was telling you, you need to do this so we can get in the car and go. And you're like, I'm not doing it. And I said, well, I'm not taking you to Disney World. I don't know. You were like 4 or 5 years old. And I said, well, then I'm not taking you to Disney World. And you said, I don't care. My nan will.
Yep.
Because she had established that relationship with you.
Don't you worry. I got this covered. You make all
You're
the
supposed
stress
to
you want.
raise your kids but spoil your grandkids.
Right. I'm waiting.
You still hope to draw really clear boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it can be hard because, like I said, I don't think like your grandmother, my mom, like ever when she was doing things for y'all as kids, was ever trying to undermine or interfere. Now, as you guys got a little older, and she and I had some very pointed conversations, and she still did things, I might feel a little differently about it, but I think when you guys were kids, they're grandmas, of course, they don't say no, right? I mean, if she's telling the kids things and then going, and don't go tell your mom and dad, that's never good.
Yeah.
All you're doing there is teaching kids to lie.
Yeah. It's never good. All right, Mom, let's hear yours.
Okay, so am I the a-hole for going through my kids' phone and tablets? This is an ongoing argument between me and my sister, so I thought I'd ask the internet their opinion. Always the best way to settle an argument. I have 3 kids, age 9, 12, and 17. My sister has 2 kids, 10-year-old twins. In my house, my wife and I have a policy of no phones at all until they leave primary school, which for us is about 11 years old, and then they start walking to the secondary school alone. No smartphone until they have proven they are trustworthy with that big old brick phone we get them when they turn 11. Like keeping it charged, not losing it, etc. And no social media until they have reached the minimum age for social media. In most areas, that's 13. Most controversially, I go through my kids' phones and tablets. We have a shared family iPad that I go through once a week. My 9-year-old doesn't have a phone yet. My 12-year-old has that big brick phone, and I stopped going through my 17-year-old's phone and laptop when he turned 16 because he had proved I could trust him. My kids, apart from my 17-year-old because he's almost an adult and can manage his own screen time, get screen time limits. Obviously, I can't control what my 12-year-old does on her phone when she's outside of the house, but I mean, it's only a brick phone. The iPad only has YouTube Kids and has a child lock on the internet. My sister's boys, on the other hand, both have iPhones, both have social media, both have unlimited screen time. They're 10? Wow. My sister doesn't go through their phones at all. This wouldn't bother me because each to their own with parenting decisions, but my 12-year-old is jealous of her cousins and the fact that they are allowed to have social media and have a better phone than her and don't get their text messages checked. My 9-year-old is jealous because his cousins have a phone and he has been begging for one. I said no and reiterated why internet safety is so important to me. I've had several personal experiences. My sister heard this and took me aside. She said I was making her look like a bad parent, said my way of parenting is invasive and gives my kids no privacy, and that she's going to buy my kids a smartphone for their birthdays if daddy's going to be such a stick in the mud. My 9 and 12-year-old overheard this and were very excited, so me and my sister have been arguing for weeks, but now my sister thinks I'm being an asshole.
Oh no. Absolutely not. I will throw it in the
No.
fire and then I'll push you in there
Oh
afterward.
my goodness.
That, of course, is a joke, but like, absolutely not. Will you subvert my parenting decisions? I may
Right.
not be the best at what I'm doing, but nobody is, right? And I'm just inserting myself into the situation. I'm not a parent, but like, that is ridiculous to me.
So I guess I'm confused on where the a-hole part is. Is she asking if she's an a-hole about telling her sister to F off, or
No. For looking into their phones and not giving them smartphones.
okay.
He's asking, am I an a-hole because I govern my kids' exposure? Like I start them out on a starter phone, and when they prove that they are, responsible with it, I'll move them up to a smartphone. But I monitor their internet, I monitor their social media. I mean, he just has rules on what they can be exposed to. And so she just blatantly told him he was being a stick in the mud and that she was buying his 9 and 12-year-old an iPhone.
So the sister is definitely an a-hole.
Yep.
The
We
sister
can
is
all agree on
definitely
that.
an a-hole. Definitely an a-hole. This story stuck out for me, and I picked this one to kind of debate because, Hayden, I don't know if you remember this, but you were in middle school, and we had kind of had this debate with you too about when was the appropriate time for a cell phone and when was the appropriate time for social media. I mean, back then it was Facebook, right?
MySpace.
And you did get a MySpace, and you with the glitter banners. You did get a smartphone about that time when you went to middle school because you guys used to ride your bikes or whatever, and you had to check in, hey, made it to school, whatever. I sort of, see where the guy's coming from. But what struck me about this is when you did get a Facebook account, that was the caveat between you and I. So I had to have the password because I needed to know who you were friends with on Facebook and what was being said and what was transpiring because there's a lot of freaks out there, right? And do you remember the time? I do not remember this little girl's name, but you came home from school one day and I asked you, hey, who is this girl? And you were friends with her on Facebook and you were like, oh, she's friends of such and such and such and such. And I'm like, well, do you really know her? And you're like, yeah, we have whatever class together. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. So what happened was I had logged onto your Facebook one day just to take a spin around, and you guys had just become Facebook friends. And so I'm like, okay, who is this girl? I didn't recognize her name, right? For those parents who are listening or may ever listen that have kids that play sports, when you fall into a sports group, all the kids, right? And I didn't recognize this little girl. So I clicked through to her page, and on her page, like in the comments, first of all, for a young girl, she did have a very risque photo up, I thought, for a young girl, but that's just my opinion. And a full-grown man was making very suggestive comments about this photo and trying to get her phone number and wanting to send pictures to her. And I was mortified. I thought, oh my God, this little girl's in so much trouble. So I started going through all her friends, trying to find an adult that had the same last name so I could reach out and go, hey, you don't know me, but I couldn't find any connection. So eventually I called the school and got the guidance counselor on the phone and was like, listen, I know this is going to sound weird, but here's what I was doing. Here's what I found. I don't know this little girl. Can you get in touch with her parents? And long story short, a couple weeks later, the little girl's mom reached out to me on Facebook and said they had no idea that the little girl had a Facebook page. She had an older sister that helped her set up her Facebook page and took the picture of her in the little bikini. And, was just grateful that there was another parent out there looking out. So no, you're not going to tell me that I'm a stick in the mud because I want to protect my kids from the weirdos. And let's face it, they're out there, the weirdos that are out there in the world. Absolutely not. No, The sister is 100%, 100%
So,
an a-hole.
so I, being the difference in age that we are, and me not having kids or that like paternal instinct, I would disagree with you.
What?
I like. I don't think.
Just give it 7 years and you win.
Right. I don't.
No, I'm not kidding. Like, it sounds weird, but like I felt the same way as you did until I turned 30.
But here's the thing.
And like, because something switches in you, in your like humanity, that you just start like, oh, I want to start a family and I want to be protective or whatever. Because like I thought just like you did, like freedom. I wish I had more freedom when I was a kid, but like it changes.
But wait, I want to hear. Wait, I want to hear his reason.
Yeah.
So like I get that. I get the like wanting to protect and stuff like that. But like I don't know. I feel like it's a lack of self-confidence in being a parent that leads to that kind of parenting. Whereas like, okay, I get wanting to be protective and stuff, but like if you want to trust your kids, teach them about the horrors and everything disgusting and rude and gross on the internet and how to avoid it and what to look for, right? I'm not saying, oh, you can't check in, like, okay, if you have a Facebook, give me the password, for safety, but like going through text messages and photos and like, okay, if they're young enough, having like a child lock, sure, like parental locks on it, because there are some things that like a 7-year-old shouldn't see. But like as you start to get older, it helps form you as a person, I would say, to learn to look out for those things instead of having somebody shield you for so long from them, because then you don't know what the world is truly like.
Right. I 100% agree with lessons learned via doing and figuring it out for yourself are obviously more constructive than someone just showing you. It's the whole teach a man to fish or catch a fish for a minute, whatever the heck the saying is. There's merit to what you're saying, Hayden, but like I'm with Mom on this one. There's 100% just an inability to be able to trust the way the world is now. And I'm not saying it's any worse necessarily than it was back in the day. It's just things are more readily available, right? Like perverts always existed, pedophiles always existed, whatever, the case may be. It's just now there's such a more targeted, effective way for them to get what they're after. And so it's our responsibility as adults for one, as parents for another, and just as people in general to protect those who are not smart enough or like experienced enough to understand like what's happening, what they're getting themselves involved in. There's an unbelievable amount, and I don't know, Hayden, if you had the same experience, but I've not always been like a really devout Christian, and so I know that there is a lot, just a lot, and my wife's a high school teacher, so can confirm, of child pornography that goes around schools and stuff. Like people pass, these kids pass like nudes and stuff to each other all the time. And so what happens is when you think you're sharing that with someone you can trust, then it gets spread out further and further. You get embarrassed. People like commit unalive over this stuff. So like it's very important to be the wall. Their kids may resent you for a time, but when they grow up, I get it now. Like that moment usually happens.
I'm not saying that like you can't be the wall and like set a limit, but I do think like giving the freedom to explore the internet in their own ways, like, I don't know, helps them learn, but teach them how to avoid or how to look out for the bad things.
So it's funny to hear both of y'all's viewpoints because there's a comment that speaks to both of them. So to what Jason just said about what happens in the school systems, this comment says, I'm a teacher, not a parent. I've taught at school where the kids I taught were 9 and 10 years old. All had their own iPads or tablets. The grade I taught was the first one where they used devices. So I used to encourage parents to take a look at their kids' devices often because they would be surprised at what their innocent kids were able to access, from bullying to hardcore porn. And every time it happened and we had to alert the parents, they were astonished. They had never bothered checking in on their kids at all. Many of them saw it as an invasion of their privacy and thought they would need to ask their kids for permission or to look at their device. Please keep checking up on your kids. Do not be fooled that you can educate them on the ways of the world without having a hard line of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. Not only are you making sure they are safe from predators, but you're also giving them a way to be accountable for their own actions. So what stuck out to me in that comment specifically, I mean, there's a ton of stuff, but what specifically jumped out at me is the bullying. Because kids that age that are bullied, and they get bullied via text or, over social media or whatever, they're not telling their parents. They are being beat down and bullied, and they're not telling a teacher, and they're not telling their parents. And so if somebody isn't looking, they can't step in and stand up for that kid and teach that kid that no matter what they say, you report this or you come to me. Much like when you guys were younger, there was no conversation off limits with us. So, because we had that trust and you guys always felt like you could come to me with whatever. So I see merit in what you're saying, Hayden. I do. I just think that oftentimes people think that, and it sounds great at the time because you want to be that aware and involved parent, but there's work and laundry and grocery shopping and baths and paying bills, and time just gets away from you. But the other comment that was made goes to what you were talking about, Hayden. I just want to know what you mean by going through their device. There's a difference between checking to see if a predator is targeting your children and subjecting your children to overbearance and total control. If you're doing a quick glance to make sure they're talking only to family and friends and that there's no inappropriate conversation, they're not being bullied or cyber stalked, not really reading the content of the messages, and don't confront them about their private thoughts and discussions, then you're striking a good balance. But if you're doing stuff like making them read their messages out loud or punishing them or humiliating them, then that's messed up. That said, your sister's still an asshole. I totally agree with this guy. I do think there's a balance on how you do it. I don't think it's at the end of the day, give me your phone, let me read all your text messages, read everything. It's a quick glance, like it was on your Facebook page that day. I didn't recognize her. So I clicked through to see who she was, to see if I could connect her to another kid that I knew. Because that's the thing, predators poses all kinds of...
And like with the use of AI and stuff now, it's even worse.
But like,
right.
Just like, I feel like I was one of the first groups of kids to grow up with this technology in schools so heavily. And so like, I don't know, like no matter what you do at home as a parent to shield your kid, if they go to a public school, even private schools, there's nothing they haven't seen.
Right.
I can guarantee it. But there are kids in that school that just will show anything to anybody because they think it's funny. Bullying, yes, is bad, but a lot of kids don't see it that way when they're doing it. It's just a funny way to like express yourself onto someone, and it's not cool, but like, I don't know. It's just, you're never going to shield your kid from everything.
Right, because here's another one that falls in your camp. You're not the asshole. There's a lot going on in this post, and obviously do whatever you feel like you need to do. But I don't recommend going through your kids' phones. Just use parental controls and try to limit their exposure and talk to them about the things that they may experience on the internet and about internet safety. Make sure you're building a bridge so your kids feel confident in coming to talk to you about anything. My mom went through my phone when I was 12 and confronted me about it, and it still makes me cringe to this day. We never repaired our communication after that, and I hid things from her throughout my adolescence. Being super strict will just cause your kids to hide things from you, and they will never want to talk to you if they encounter a problem. Shaming them will only make it worse. Just try to create a safe space to communicate for them to communicate with you and teach them how to be safe online. Kids do need some privacy. My opinion is probably controversial. Man, I'm having a hard time talking today. But don't make yourself the enemy. But also, I would never let anyone buy my kid a phone. So, I mean, it's a weird dichotomy. I think there is a balance. And
it's a generational thing between the three of us, I think, because like, you grew up and there wasn't the internet for a very long time.
Right. Or cell
Jason
phones.
grew up going to school. There were cell phones, but they didn't have the internet on them. And then the internet he did grow up with was very different than it is today.
Quick correction, they had the internet. It just cost money to use it. Mom, you remember?
Yes.
I spent 4 hours looking for a ringtone and wallpapers and stuff, and it cost her it was
Yeah.
going to cost her $400 or
Yeah.
I'm like, get off your phone. Give me that.
But that's the thing is it was vastly different than what you can do now.
yeah, truly.
My iPhone, I have the newest iPhone.
Yeah.
It can do more than the computer that sent the Apollo 11 missions to the moon. It's just such a different world. So I feel like my generation has a very different view on this situation than y'all's does because of the way I grew up with what I grew up with.
Well, I just think she's an asshole for telling him he's an asshole.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt the sister is.
Right. I'm not judging him on whether he's going through their phones or not. I mean, you do what you feel like you need to do with your kids, but your sister's definitely an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, of course, it's important to remember that we're not supposed to conform to this world. So just because everyone else thinks it's cool doesn't mean that's what should be happening. I don't think there's any problem with raising your kids exactly how you see fit, especially if it's protecting them.
I'm never going to tell somebody how they should parent their kid. That's their kid. They can do what they want with it. But
with it.
Them, I'm not going to genderfy all kids.
All right. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. All right. I don't know, Mr. Producer. Can we do another round or do we need a part 2 on this?
I mean, we could settle for a part 2.
Well, if that's the case, y'all know what time it is. What time is it?
I have no idea what time it is. I could never.
It's about 9:00.
Oh, it is. Oh, my goodness. Wow. It's my bedtime. No, fools.
Shoot.
It's monkey mischief time.
I've never heard of that before. This is crazy.
I know. It's like a new thing we're trying.
We'll see how it goes, I guess.
I mean, we had such a fun time last week with our first ever listener submission, which was very cool. We couldn't figure out how to get it submitted. We had to help him. That's okay. That's okay. We still love him. So Monkey Mischief is on Monday. We post the beginning of a bad, typically.
Are there good ones?
Bad dad joke in social media. Yeah. Well, yeah. This one I like. We post the beginning of a dad joke in social media. We invite you to drop your best guess in the comments and then join us here on Wednesdays to hear the punchline to that joke. So if you ventured onto our Facebook page this past week, you would have seen we posted, what did the grape do when the elephant stood on it?
Smushed? I mean.
I can't even venture a guess for this one.
Oh, it let out a little whine.
Oh my God.
Very good.
And that joke is dedicated to my BFF, Lisa.
That's good.
If you think you have a dad joke that is suitable for Monkeys Unfiltered, please visit us at www.monkeysunfiltered.com. Scroll about halfway down the page. There is a submission form. And if we voice your dad joke on air, what will they get, Hayden?
Sticker!
We will absolutely send you one badass Monkeys Unfiltered sticker. All right. Well, that was a lively discussion full of a lot of opinion. And yeah, I think we do a part 2. It's always interesting to me. It's one of the things that just draws me to people, even when I want to shut them all out, is behaviors and why people do the things that they do. And so,
because people are crazy.
True.
Yes. Well, to quote a country music song, people are crazy, but beer is good. Anyhow, I'm always attracted to why people do the things that they do. And I think that's why I got kind of sucked down this rabbit hole of reading people's, just first of all, the things that they even have to question, am I a jerk or not? I mean, whether you're being a jerk or not. And then just the opinions that come back, I find it really fascinating. But
you being fascinated with why people do what they do explains our favorite mall hobby.
Yes.
People watching.
Yes. People watching. So probably before I even had most of y'all, that was my mom and I's pastime in the afternoons. We'd get a Coke, sit on the bench of the mall, and we would guess what people did for a living based on the way they looked, which I know is just a horrible thing to do. But
well, in today's standards. Back then, that was perfectly okay.
In today's standards, back then, it was just kind of funny and entertaining. But anyhow, thanks for being here with me today For our listeners, we would love it if while you are on social media reading that dad joke and lobbying your guest, you hit that like button at the top of our Facebook page, and that you then subscribe to the podcast wherever it is you get your podcast, and we would appreciate a rating. We are trying really hard to get legs under Monkeys Unfiltered, and we need you guys to help us out. Thank you.
We would love it.
We would love
It'd
it.
be okay.
But I guess that's all for today. So we will see you all next week, same time, same channel, same crazy monkeys.
Later.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
I can't look at you with that fork stuck to your face.
Athena, stop.